The diplomatic meeting hall aboard the neutral station Nexus Prime buzzed with the soft hum of universal translators and the gentle whir of environmental systems accommodating a dozen different atmospheric requirements. Captain Jake Morrison stood at attention alongside his diplomatic escort, Ambassador Lisa Park, as they awaited their first formal contact with the Vellani delegation. The Vellani had been observing human ships for months from the Outer Rim territories, always keeping their distance, always watching. When they finally sent a communication requesting peaceful contact, the United Earth Alliance had jumped at the opportunity. First contact protocols were activated, and Morrison, despite being a military officer, found himself chosen for the Bones mission due to his exemplary record and calm demeanor under pressure. The airlock hissed open, and 3 figures glided into the chamber. The Vellani were unlike anything in the human xenobiology databases. They stood roughly 5 feet tall, with elongated limbs that moved with fluid grace. Their skin shimmered with an opalescent quality that shifted between deep blues and purples. Most striking were their large, luminous eyes that seemed to hold an ancient wisdom, and their lack of what humans would consider a conventional torso structure. The lead Vellani stepped forward, her movements creating small ripples of light across her skin. Through the translator, her voice came across as melodious and curious. "I am Prime Researcher Kala of the Vellani Exploration Council. We greet you, humans of Earth." Ambassador Park stepped forward with practiced diplomatic grace. "Prime Researcher Kala, I am Ambassador Lisa Park, and this is Captain Jake Morrison. We are honored by this historic meeting." Kala's large eyes focused intently on Morrison, and her head tilted in what appeared to be confusion. She took several steps closer, her gaze fixed on his midsection. The other 2 Vellani behind her began whispering among themselves in their native language. Their translators apparently switched off. Morrison felt increasingly uncomfortable under their scrutiny, but maintained his professional composure. Ambassador Park noticed the tension building and cleared her throat diplomatically. "Prime Researcher, is there something about Captain Morrison that concerns you?" Kala's attention snapped back to Park, and her skin shifted to a lighter shade of blue, which Morrison hoped indicated embarrassment rather than aggression. "Forgive my directness, Ambassador Park, but I must ask about your companion. We have observed your species from afar, and our biological scans indicated a standard bipedal structure with 2 primary locomotion appendages and 2 manipulation appendages." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "That's correct, Prime Researcher. 2 arms, 2 legs." Kala's eyes widened, and she pointed directly at Morrison's belt area. "Then human, what is that 3rd limb? The cylindrical appendage secured to your lower torso? Our sensors detected it as organic tissue, yet it appears to be detached. May I examine it?" Dead silence fell over the diplomatic chamber. Morrison felt his face growing warm as he realized what the Vellani researcher was referring to. Ambassador Park's eyes widened in understanding, and she quickly stepped between Morrison and the curious alien scientist. "Prime Researcher Kala," Park began carefully, "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. What you're referring to isn't a limb at all." Morrison reached down and unsnapped his service weapon from its holster, holding it up for the Vellani delegation to see. "This is a tool, Prime Researcher. A defensive implement we call a sidearm or pistol." The 3 Vellani immediately took several steps back, their skin shifting to a dark purple that Morrison suspected indicated alarm. Kala's voice carried a note of concern through the translator. "A weapon? You brought instruments of violence to a peaceful meeting?" Morrison quickly raised his hands in a gesture of peace, still holding the weapon safely. "It's standard protocol for our military personnel, Prime Researcher. I mean, no threat. It's simply part of my uniform, like your research equipment." He gestured to the various devices attached to Kala's person, small instruments that glowed softly and seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Kala's skin began to return to its normal shifting blue-purple pattern, and she stepped closer. Again, her scientific curiosity overriding her initial alarm. Your species carries portable violence instruments as standard equipment? This is most fascinating. Our people abandoned such tools millennia ago when we achieved societal harmony. Humans are still learning to achieve that harmony. Ambassador Park interjected diplomatically. Captain Morrison carries his sidearm as a precaution, not with any intent to use it. Morrison carefully engaged the weapon's safety mechanisms and placed it on the nearby conference table, well out of reach. I'd be happy to explain its function and our security protocols, if that would help build trust between our peoples. Kala approached the table, her eyes fixed on the pistol with the intense fascination of a dedicated scientist encountering a new specimen. Your species carries tools designed to project force at a distance? How efficient, how terrible, how remarkably adaptive. She looked up at Morrison with what he interpreted as growing respect. Captain Morrison, your people have survived by being prepared for conflict, yet you come here seeking peace. This suggests a complexity of thought that our initial observations failed to detect. Morrison nodded slowly. We've learned that the best way to preserve peace is to be prepared for its absence, Prime Researcher. But we always hope we'll never need these preparations. The other two Velani approached the table, their own scientific instruments now active, and scanning the weapon with obvious fascination. Kala's skin brightened considerably, shifting to what Morrison was beginning to recognize as excitement. Ambassador Park, Captain Morrison, I believe this misunderstanding has led to a most valuable insight. Your species' approach to survival and diplomacy is far more nuanced than our long-range observations suggested. We have much to learn from each other. Ambassador Park smiled. That's exactly what we were hoping to hear, Prime Researcher. Morrison couldn't help but grin as he watched the Velani. Scientists continue their examination of his sidearm with the enthusiasm of children discovering a new toy. First contact was certainly going better than he'd expected, even if it had started with the most embarrassing question he'd ever been asked by an alien. The foundation for interspecies cooperation had been laid, built on mutual curiosity, honest misunderstanding, and a very human trait of being perpetually ready for anything the universe might throw their way.